Those who criticize our generation forget who raised it, and also forget, or just don't have a clue, what position they have left us in. So it is our turn now to fix what has been done, and we must stand up, and we must stand up quickly for our next generation, for our grandchildren, before it's too late. So I just want to ask you one question, and that question is, what does freedom mean to you?
About this case, because you've now been on the inside of it. You came to Mr. Raub's aid and now vindicated that. Please break it down.
Well, it's one of those Orwellian kind of, if you want to use that term. He, last Thursday, I believe, about a week ago in the afternoon, he saw some cars pull up in his driveway. The police got out, and there were some plainclothes fellows. They turned out to be the FBI, some guy who supposedly was with the Secret Service. Brandon Raub was in his shorts. So he walked down the front porch and started talking to him, said, hey, what's up? And they said, well, you've written some really controversial things on your Facebook post. And he said he was explaining to him. He said all of a sudden they just surrounded him, handcuffed him. He said, can I get my clothes? They said no. They took him out to a police car, shoved him in the police car, took him to a mental institution where they held him. His mother, very, very good lady, she got on the internet and the Facebook and started screaming about it. And a veteran contacted me and said, John, this is one of your issues, man. You need to contact the mother. So we called the mother, and she was distraught. She said, I've called everybody. And she says, great to hear somebody that wants to help. And I said, yeah. And I said, tell me about the case. When she told me, I said, this is nuts. He was quoting song lyrics in a private Facebook group called I think Dear Illuminati was the name of the group. It was his sister, his brother, and him. And so that's basically it. This is really strange. What happened? The police said, we're not charging you with a crime, Brandon. You didn't commit a crime. But they handcuffed him and took him away. And when we called the police, they said, we're not charging him. He didn't commit any crime. So the FBI. So what they're saying is, under the civil commitment law in Virginia, they can pick you up. You haven't committed a crime. They can take you away and put you in a prison. And it's what I call the psychotherapeutic state. That's what we've entered. At least 20,000 people a year in Virginia are committed this way through the civil commitment, and most of them disappear. Across the country, you're looking at thousands upon thousands of people this is happening to. So we moved in. Most people don't realize this is happening. The only reason we know is Kathleen Thomas, Brandon's mother, got on and started screaming about it, and we got involved, and we did a press release, and I said I was shocked, and we called reporters and got people, and good people like you, Alex, that are covering the story. The press really helped. But the amazing thing here is both the left and the right wing were shocked by this one. I mean, he targeted no one. So
I mean, it was just general stuff.
The judge today ruled, he said there were no factual allegations to have this man detained at all. So I order him immediately released. So as I walked in the door of this interview, supposedly he was being led down to the lobby, and we hope he's out of the hospital and on his way home. And what they told Brandon in his hearing Monday, this is great. He can never own a gun now, but the point is, this is key, he doesn't own a gun anyway. So
yeah, he's done. I mean, he's been around guns enough, probably.
Case was, what's he going to do? Poke people in the eye? I mean, what are you talking about?
I'll tell you what, walk through this for us, then what you know happened at the first hearing, when you had a chance to talk to him. You talk about how cogent he was.
Well, to give you a real good example, this morning Brandon called me. He said, John, I'm freaked out. I said, what's wrong? Because he's really usually so relaxed. He said, a psychiatrist just visited me, and he said, I'm going to brainwash you, and I'm going to force medications on you. I'm coming back. So Brandon, who could call out, got his caseworker, and they called me. And he said, John, I'm frightened. So, but they have to have a court order for him to be forced.
Well, you know what the guy was doing? He was there to terrorize him so he would act out. Well, I mean, you're an expert, but I mean, tell us what happened.
Yeah, so at the hearing Monday, they cited some of the posts, and this is the amazing thing. Some of the posts they cited that they were concerned about were said by his brother, Brent. They didn't even have their facts straight. So this is poor police work, and I think you said it right. I think that anybody today who speaks out forcefully against the United States government, you remember the Department of Homeland Security issued those memos, right-wing and left-wing extremists, and in those memos, as you noted, the word veterans were used. Veterans are seen as extremists now, and that's unfortunate. I don't understand that. Why we send people overseas to fight wars, and when they come home, we call them extremists, but that's what's happening. So I think veterans definitely are being targeted. I hear that from the veterans groups who are calling me now, and they're frightened. Well, what I think was happening, yeah, I think the reason they picked him up, it was, again, he was opposing the government verbally, not violently or otherwise. Today was the first time that we learned, and that happened this morning. Today the psychiatrist came in, and all I know is what Brandon told me. He said that the psychiatrist said, "I'm going to brainwash you. This is a licensed psychiatrist, and I'm going to force medications on you." And the reason I told him, I said, "Brandon, you don't want to do that." That was my opinion. And he didn't want to do it either. I said, what they're going to do is if they medicate you, they can manipulate you. And he understood that. He said, "I won't do it." But I think we moved in with all these civil commitments happening across, and that's what they're called, civil commitments across the United States. 20,000 alone in Virginia. We've moved into the psychotherapeutic state where psychologists and psychiatrists, whom many, and I know good psychiatrists, but I know some ones that I think are very unqualified. They're running the show now. So you can be taken away, not charged with a crime. This is 1984. This is Orwell. This is Brave New World. And also, I think it's pre-crime, by the way. If you've not seen the movie Minority Report or read Philip K. Dick's novel, you need to, because what they're doing here, they're trying to predict crime. And when you predict crime, as the Minority Report shows, you're going to target innocent people. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And I think they're trying to sift out a certain group of people. I mean, I don't know. Otherwise, the Brandon Raub case makes absolutely no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. The Brandon Raub case is so important today. It says the First Amendment's still alive, and there's some rule of law. And what he's going to do is he's going to give people heart. And I told him that on the phone. But this morning when he was worried, I said, "Brandon, man, your story's gone viral. You're a hero. You're making people think." And he kind of laughed and said, "That's great, John." I said, "So stay in there, man." And that was before we heard about the judge ruling that he should be released. I think that's exactly what they were doing. They were trying to prove that he should be in there. They don't want the system disrupted. I'm looking into it now, but I assume they're probably getting some kind of federal grant or some kind of money for the patients that are put in the hospital. So they make a lot of money off of it. And people don't realize, like police on marijuana bus, for people with having a joint, they're doing SWAT team raids. They get federal grants per raid. There's money to be made by the governmental establishment off of putting people in jail. And I've written another commentary people should read called The Overcriminalization of America. What we're seeing is there's so many laws being passed that the average American, I've been told this, probably doesn't realize that they're committing 3 felonies a day, which means you can be put away. But the dangerous thing about this case is they arrive and say, "You've committed no crime." They surround him, arrest him, and put him in a police car and take him away. That is so far out. Like I said, 40 years of constitutional law. This is the first case I think that gives me the creeps.
Other points you'd like to get to? We have the founder and head of one of the preeminent and best civil rights groups out there fighting for basic freedom. John Whitehead is our guest. I look forward to getting him back on the radio, not just TV, very soon. My final question, and I want you to, again, cover any tidbits you think are important. Talking about the hearing, talking about what happened in it, specifics of this judge repudiating this Soviet-style snatch and grab.
Yeah, well, it's a very short order, but what he said was, he said, "This is going to come back to me on appeal, this case, but I'm not going to wait till the appeal. I'm deciding now. I've looked at the petition," and he says, and I have it right here in front of me, he says, and I'm reading from it, "The petition to commit Brandon Raub is devoid of any factual allegations that could not be reasonably expected to give rise to a case or controversy." He said they don't have any kind of case at all. I ordered this man to be released immediately. So we're talking to the Brandon and his mother right now about filing a civil lawsuit against the government for damages. This should not happen. They put them through a trauma. I mean, a psychiatric hospital psychiatrist threatening him. The government should pay up on this and pay this family well.
What do you expect to happen next with the civil suit? How is Mr. Raub handling it? We talked to some of the family, and they were, I guess, a day ago or so, and they were scared.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think they're going to move forward with a civil lawsuit. We're going to talk to them this evening and make that decision.
We've got John Whitehead, the lawyer for our listener, the Marine, highly decorated, honorably discharged, Brandon Raub, who was released yesterday from a psychiatric facility for saying that 9/11 was an inside job and the Federal Reserve is private. And the psychiatrist came in and told him that was mental illness and that he was going to, quote, brainwash him and forcibly drug him, trying to make him get mad and throw a fit. That didn't work. They did that right before they knew the hearing was coming up. Brandon Raub, persecuted for telling the truth about the Federal Reserve. So there you have it. And he said 9/11 was an inside job, an even bigger crime. I mean, I've seen national polls where 68% question the official story. John Whitehead, good to have you on with us.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Okay, recap of the case for new listeners that may have missed it, and then what happened with the judge, and then the latest info you've gotten.
But anyway, Brandon Raub, he's actually arrived at home. He was released yesterday. As people know the story, last Thursday the police arrived at his home, said he committed no crime, but he had done some Facebook posts. They arrested him in his shorts, shoved him in the police car, took him to the police station, turned him over to a mental institution, and he was there approximately a week, and we got a judge yesterday to say there was no factual basis to keep him in the institution. He was to be released immediately. And I just had a reporter call me from that county. He says, John, we just discovered there was 20 other people in this county alone that were arrested like that just this month. So, and this is happening all over the country. In Virginia alone, over 20,000 people are civilly committed each year in Virginia alone like this. So the thing was, and I'd say it here, and it's important for people who really love their country and want freedom, what his mom did was great. She got out on Facebook and the internet and started screaming about this. We were alerted and we got involved. But without that, folks, I think there are a lot of people in America disappearing. But what I'm hearing from the veterans groups is there are a lot of veterans.
Oh, absolutely. Let me stop you, because we can open the phones up now and load them with veterans that have been grabbed for no reason. I mean, if they say, I hate Obama, he's a piece of garbage, or I hate this, they show up, the Secret Service have them fired, and then they're grabbed and taken away. Some of them never come back. Others, they take their guns. This is a new creeping authoritarian disappearance thing that is happening, and you just blew me away. This is amazing. You got called by a reporter. Please give us details, because we're going to write a story about this. And I know you've also been writing articles and press releases there on your site. We're going to give that out in a moment. But this is going to be big national news, I would imagine. Now the Drudge Report will probably want to look at this. I mean, this is a big deal. You're saying in one county.
In Virginia, the county where he was arrested and taken away, the reporter said, we were surprised. We checked into it. 20 people just this month have been taken away like that in Chesterfield County, Virginia. That's what the reporter told me. He said, this is pretty freaky stuff. And I said, that's right. And so, but other states across the country have these statutes. It allows the police to come to your home if you committed no crime to arrest you and put you in a mental institution. The thing is, though, like I said, his mom got out there and alerted people. Most people disappeared. I mean, once they put you on medications, you're there forever. And I suspect, and we're researching this now, that the mental institutions, especially groups like the VA, probably get some kind of funding for the people that are placed in there. Otherwise, there's really, it makes no sense.
Can you tell us the reporter that called you? I mean, was this off record? Because, or
off record. He just said, it shocks me. He was interviewing me. He just stopped in the middle of a sentence. He said, you're right about the civil commitment procedure. It's a little strange. Well, you know, and you said it, the old Soviet Union. In America, if the police are going to arrest you, you should have at least be suspected of committing a crime. All Brandon Raub did is quote lyrics from a group called Swollen Members. By the way, I didn't think they were very great lyrics, but that's all he did. He was exercising his free speech in a private grouping on Facebook. Somehow the government got in there and conducted surveillance, got the quotes, and use those against him. He didn't target anybody, and he doesn't even own a weapon. So this guy's not dangerous, but anybody in authority, when we moved into a police state, a surveillance state, anybody that speaks out can be targeted. And I'm so visible. The more visible you are, like you, Alex, the less chance of someone like you being taken away. But if you're Brandon Raub, a 26-year-old kid in Chesterfield County, Virginia, yeah, you can disappear.
Well, let's be clear. Historically, the answer is for everybody to speak out now, because if they're able to buffalo us and get this through, they're going to continue it. Undoubtedly, there's now a national program nationwide sweeping veterans up, in many cases, for literally nothing. I mean, they're bold enough now to go after talk show hosts that have pretty good followings. So if they can, go after these smaller fish, they can go after us tomorrow. We've got to hang together or hang separate. As our forebears said, we're now to that point with the 20th century, 21st century favorite model of using the psychiatric system to go after people. And then you were telling me on air, but also some off air, some of the things the psychiatrists were saying to him, obviously trying to antagonize him. Can you go over what they were saying to Mr. Raub?
Well, Brandon called me yesterday. This is before we got the court order. And he called me, and he wasn't in a panic, but he said, I'm really a little freaked. And I said, why? What's going on? And he said, well, a psychiatrist just came in. He gave me the name of the psychiatrist. We're checking him out. But he said the psychiatrist pulled up a chair and closed the door and sat in front of him and said, I'm going to brainwash you. And he went, what? He says, and if you don't listen to me, I'm going to force medication. So Brandon had the ability to call out with a social worker sitting beside me. He said, what should I do? Well, in Virginia, you have to have a court order to force medication. I said, tell the man that he's violating the law. So thank God, about an hour later, we got the court order and got him out of there. But that actually occurred. I mean, Brandon Raub is as lucid as anybody I've ever known. He's a bright kid. Again, as you know, he's a decorated Marine. This is chilling stuff. It's crazy.
Amazing. Now continuing to go over all of this information with the founder of the Rutherford Institute, John Whitehead, with us right now. I want to go back to the reporter. Please tell us his name, because we'd like to call him and get him on as a guest.
I email that to you. I really don't. I don't have his name. I mean, I don't remember his name.
No, you've been on a whole bunch. How many shows you been on the last 24 hours?
The last week, I've been on so many shows that I sleep well at night. Let's put it that way. But what we moved into is a psychotherapeutic state. That's exactly where we're headed. It's very similar to the old Soviet Union, but then they use Gestapo tactics like they did in Nazi Germany. They just show up at your door right now. And what people have to understand is you got to know your rights. But here's the other thing I'm encouraging people to do. Call your congressman. There should be an investigation into this. There should be a committee hearings on what's happening in this country. We need access to FBI records, how they're categorizing people. You're familiar with national security letters, right?
Yes. They're
issuing so many of those, I won't want to cuss that, darn things, that they're everywhere. What they do is they just show up with a letter saying, we want this information. Well, the cell phone companies, Google, they're handing over all this information to the police. In fact, they're actually making money off of it. Some cell phone companies have sections where they sell to police photos and information on you.
Let's be clear. Without warrants now, they have these national security stamps they claim were just for al-Qaeda. Just 6 years ago, Bush was lying and saying, I promise we don't spy on any Americans. Then it came out, of course, they were. Now it's just, yeah, we're doing everything we want. And now, because you quoted some lyrics, we're going to disappear you. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no warrants. This is the FBI, and the FBI shows up. And as we know, I've written about the FBI. They have a new manual which allows them basically to go. They're going into peace activists' homes, and they're rummaging around in their attics trying to find anything to use against them. And here's the question I get all the time. Well, John, if I've done nothing wrong, why should I be concerned? Well, you should be concerned if you believe in the Constitution because it's against the law. The second thing is, you need to teach your children now. If your children do something silly on Facebook and they want to be a federal judge someday, that's all going in a file. The National Security Agency keeps all that. 1.6 million bits of information are downloaded by the National Security Agency every day from the internet.
And let's be clear, you're talking about sneak and peek, where even if you catch them in your house planting stuff, government breaking in your house, you're not allowed to even tell anybody they were there. I mean, that is Kafka-esque.
Oh, yeah. And there's a gag order on the national security letters. You cannot, that they're told they cannot reveal that the FBI has been there looking through your records. So we moved into an Orwellian state. You use the word Orwellian, it's beyond that. It's Minority Report. It's everything Philip K. Dick and the great sci-fi writers wrote about. It's fact has become fiction. We're there. So what can we do? I mean, people better try. I stopped watching television 2 years ago. There's no news on TV. You can get news from your shows and what I call the underground press and the underground talk shows. That's where you can get the news. You go on websites and read, get informed. Don't worry what Brad Pitt did last week. Worry about what the FBI did last week or your local police, because the local police now are hooked into all the national intelligence agencies. You can't flee from it, but you can resist it, and that's the key. Congress needs to have a national investigation here. We need to embarrass those guys who say they represent us in the United States Congress, which most of them don't, in my opinion, and force them to look into this matter. I mean, we're supposed to be under the rule of law, but we're not under the rule of law. The law is the Constitution. The Constitution says in our Fourth Amendment, before the police conduct surveillance on you, they have to have credible evidence you're doing something illegal. Well, they arrive and arrest Brandon Raub because he did some Facebook posts. So we moved into a new phase. We're not under the rule of law, but the only hope is, in my opinion, if we're going to have any system in our rights, is to force Congress to do an investigation. And that's going to take it's going to take some picketing. It's veteran groups, by the way, have called me. They're going to do some national picketing on this issue. That's a good thing to do. Martin Luther King is a great example. He forced someone to write a law to protect black people. We need to force them to write a law to protect average Americans now.
That's right. And expanding on this, we're going to come back in a final segment. I want to find out how Mr. Raub is doing. I've also discovered he was a daily listener before this happened. They're persecuting so many of our listeners. The answer is don't let them intimidate you. Everyone needs to step forward and say, I'm Brandon Raub. Can you recap, again, just basically what the local reporter told you? Because I have a national newspaper listening right now.
Yeah, a local reporter in Chesterfield County told me that just this month, 20 people have been picked up, similar to Brandon Raub. They were not all veterans, just picked up and taken away like he was. Oath Keepers and a number of groups have called me and said, and the VFW veterans saying that, yeah, we're getting veterans calling us here in the office for legal help just today.
Wow.
Something about veterans, but you know, the Department of Homeland Security released those extremist memos. Veterans were listed as extremists by the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, we all know that, have studied the subject.
That's right. Just because they're a veteran, they're bad. Just period. It's like, they're the number one threat, the DHS memos that we broke because police gave them. Yeah. People
that oppose abortion were listed in that. So, I mean, anybody that opposes governmental, I mean, it's the same thing I opened the show with. Oppositional defiant disorder. Anybody that defies authority is considered psychotic, essentially. Well, Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine would have been put away in civil commitment by the British. Well, Brandon is arrived at home. He's been through quite an ordeal. We are looking into what he wants to do next. I'm advising a civil lawsuit against the government for damages.